A 21-year-old steps inside one of the most elite spaces in the sporting world. Pristine white walls, soft illumination, and the quiet presence of power that only comes from decades of established prestige. Everyone in that room assumes she is there to negotiate. The most influential figure in tennis apparel sits right across from her, a prepared contract resting on the table with a pen ready. Yet, this young athlete, the very first Filipino player to secure a single seed at a Grand Slam, looks down at the paperwork, looks back at the man who built a $30 billion empire, and delivers 3 words that completely stun the room. It transforms a standard endorsement meeting into an instant cultural milestone. Those 3 words will follow Eala for the remainder of her playing days, whether observers label her choice foolish or fearless. Remarkably, she did not even pause. That is where our story begins, but the final chapter unfolds somewhere far greater. To truly grasp what she did and why it carries so much weight, we have to look at where she started. Tennis in the Philippines has always been a complex passion. The nation possesses an intense raw love for the game, but on the international stage, Filipino athletes rarely broke into the elite conversation. For generations, fans from Manila to Cebu and across the islands watched Wimbledon from afar, cheering for competitors from Europe, Russia, or the United States, while wishing for someone from their own shores to step onto that historic grass. Eala was meant to be that breakthrough. Ever since her childhood, the tennis community watched her closely. She possessed that rare mix of natural instinct and strict discipline that every coach looks for. By age 14, Nike had already reached out to sign her, which speaks volumes. A brand like Nike does not partner with a 14-year-old on a whim. They invest in the future. They back the competitors they believe will eventually take center stage on the world's grandest platforms. When they gave Alex a custom white hair tie for her Wimbledon debut, accented with a single sampaguita, the national flower of the Philippines, it was more than just a marketing tactic. It was a clear message. They were saying, "We see you, we honor your roots, and we stand right beside you." That small detail mattered immensely, and it still does. In the corporate world of athletic sponsorships, that kind of care is incredibly rare. Typically, players are treated like commodities, just entries on a financial sheet, social media engagement metrics, or market expansion data. But Nike looked at a young teenager from the Philippines and chose to celebrate her identity. You cannot put a price tag on that sort of bond, nor can you secure it through hard bargaining. It is either genuine or it isn't, and Eala had the real thing. Move forward 7 years to the present. Alex is now 21, and her rise over the last few months has been spectacular. She captures a grass court title in Birmingham. She defeats world number 2 Elena Rybakina, a competitor famous for possessing one of the most devastating serves in the women's game. In Berlin, she knocks out the 8th-ranked Elena Svitolina. By the time she arrives at Wimbledon, the ultimate sanctuary of tennis, 25,000 Filipino fans are right there with her. These were tens of thousands of people who crossed global oceans, spent hard-earned savings, took time off from work, and arranged flights and lodging months ahead of time, driven entirely by their belief in her. The atmosphere she brought to the tournament was incredibly vibrant. This was no longer just about tennis. It had grown into a movement. It was a community finally seeing itself represented on the most legendary stage in sports. Naturally, the corporate world took notice. The moment Alex's name began trending globally, with her face broadcast on screens from London to Tokyo and Los Angeles, corporate invitations came pouring in. That is simply how the elite sports industry operates. Success does not wait around. It sends a corporate executive to a luxury suite at the All England Club with a fresh contract and a payout large enough to make anyone hesitate. Patrice Louvet has navigated this industry for a long time. He took over leadership at Ralph Lauren during a volatile period for the business and quietly guided it back to its rightful position at the absolute top of the market. He trimmed down the product lines, stopped relying on discount retail outlets, raised the price points, and restored the company's reputation for premium luxury. In the luxury sector, public image is everything. A leader must be highly selective and make calculated moves. Partnering Ralph Lauren with the most talked-about athlete of the moment, especially one with a compelling global narrative like Eala, was supposed to be one of those brilliant moves. The fashion house had served as Wimbledon's official outfitter since 2006. They were not just a regular sponsor. They were the official outfitter. Every single ball person wore their distinctive clothing, as did every tournament official on the courts. That represents nearly 3 decades of deep connection with the most elegant and historic tennis tournament on earth. A relationship like that transcends financial value. It defines the brand's identity and DNA. Louvet wanted Eala to be a part of that legacy. So, when she joined him in that pristine white suite, he had no reason to worry. Why would he? He brought the heritage, the prestige, the data, and the exact kind of deal that young players spend their lives dreaming about. What he lacked, and what he completely failed to anticipate, was a 21-year-old who already knew exactly where she stood. The contract remained on the table between them as the room fell quiet. Then, Alex looked up and delivered a firm no. It was not a maybe, or a request to let her agent review the terms. It was just a direct refusal. When a stunned Louvet asked for an explanation, because nothing in his career had ever prepared him for a rejection like this, Alex offered a reply that was incredibly simple and entirely clear. She explained that her loyalty was already pledged. She reminded him that Nike had supported her back when she was completely unknown. She noted that they never attempted to alter her image, never forced her to fit a mold, and never demanded she compromise her true self just to promote a corporate logo. Finally, she stated that she refused to cast that loyalty aside for a larger figure on a check. The silence that settled over the room was the heavy kind that occurs when someone goes completely off script, leaving everyone present at a total loss for words. Louvet attempted to change her mind, emphasizing exactly what she was leaving behind. He made it perfectly clear that a brand like Ralph Lauren does not extend second offers. He spoke with the firm authority that powerful executives use when they want you to realize the weight of turning them down. Alex never wavered. She looked him directly in the eye and replied that they would simply have to go their separate ways. Then, she exited the room. Within a few hours, the entire deal was permanently dead. Ralph Lauren made sure to close that door immediately. When an athlete publicly turns down an offer of that scale, a premium brand does not leave the path open. It sends a message. The message was unmistakable. Eala had made her decision, and she would have to face the outcomes. The financial sacrifice was undeniable. We are talking about millions of dollars over a multi-year deal. This was the chance to be the face of Wimbledon fashion, the most esteemed tournament partnership in the entire sport. It represented a level of worldwide exposure that money simply cannot buy. By any standard business measure, Eala had just committed a massive professional error, and the internet was quick to remind her. The public response arrived in massive waves. On one side, there was immense celebration. Supporters throughout the Philippines flooded digital platforms with praise, calling her incredibly brave and principled. They expressed pride in having an athlete who refused to compromise when life-changing money was thrown her way, someone who remembered her origins. On the flip side, critics were incredibly vocal, questioning how a 21-year-old could walk away for millions, asking if she truly believed Nike would support her forever or if loyalty could actually pay the bills. The argument was intense, and both viewpoints carried valid points. The reality of sports endorsements is something casual observers rarely grasp fully. An athlete's window for peak earnings is incredibly brief and unforgiving. Athletic careers can end instantly when injuries happen. The moment the victories stop, the corporate offers vanish. The time to secure your financial future is precisely when everyone is competing for your signature, not down the road. By declining Ralph Lauren during the most prominent month of her professional career, Alex was making a massive bet that her current partners would sustain her, that loyalty would cut both ways, and that the public would value her integrity in a way that ultimately increased her worth. It was a gamble that few financial professionals would ever advise taking. Yet, something remarkable followed. Nike openly doubled down on their support, not through a quiet statement buried in the back pages, but loudly and with the distinct enthusiasm companies save for the icons they genuinely believe in. Babolat, the French equipment brand that had backed her since her junior tennis days, extended her contract. Globe Telecom, her sponsor since she was just 8 years old, did not stay quiet either. They built an entire marketing initiative around her principles, transforming her choice into a symbol of the values they wanted to project. BPI stood firmly behind her as well, while the Filipino public, who had already turned out in massive numbers, rallied behind her even more fiercely. Her Instagram following surged past 1 million right after the news broke. A supportive hashtag trended across 17 different nations, and television viewership for her matches climbed throughout Asia. The Eala effect, as the public dubbed it, was not just enduring, it was expanding rapidly. This is the point where the narrative becomes truly captivating. What Eala achieved, whether intentional or not, is a rarity in modern sports. She prioritized relational value over financial gain at the exact moment her financial value hit its absolute peak. She picked the partners who took a chance on her before success was guaranteed, over the brand that only arrived once her success was undeniable. The market itself, the millions of everyday fans watching her journey, responded beautifully. People are exhausted by purely transactional relationships. They are tired of watching talented individuals turn into corporate billboards, walking endorsements with no real identity beyond the company funding them. Audiences are looking for athletes who stand for genuine values and remember their roots, even when presented with a fortune. Eala gave them exactly that. She did not give a grand speech or write a long essay explaining her ethics. She simply made her choice in that boardroom, and that action spoke volumes on its own. Of course, there is an alternate path where this story ends poorly. A scenario where Nike eventually shifts focus to a newer star, the public excitement cools down, and the critics who labeled her reckless prove to be correct. That remains a distinct possibility. Sports are inherently unpredictable, and having high principles does not guarantee victory on the court. But right now, we can see one undeniable truth. Eala left that meeting with an asset that no corporate contract could ever provide. She walked out carrying a powerful narrative. It is not just her own story, but a national one. A narrative that a country of 110 million citizens can look at with pride, knowing she prioritized them over a massive paycheck. That is the kind of story that transforms into a lasting legacy, the kind of moment people look back on decades after an athlete retires. If you are still debating whether she made the correct choice, look at it from another angle. Ralph Lauren has partnered with hundreds of competitors, and Patrice Louvet has authorized countless checks. How many of those corporate signings can you actually name? How many of those deals sparked a true cultural shift? Yet, you know this specific story, and you are engaged with it right now. You are reflecting on a 21-year-old Filipino woman who sat across from a titan of the fashion world, said no, and stood by it. That is not an error. That is a defining statement. In an era where athletes routinely say yes to the highest bidder, a statement like that is incredibly rare. Eala may or may not secure a Wimbledon title this year. She might become the most accomplished player her nation has ever seen, or her path could take unexpected turns as life often does. One thing is absolute. The entire world knows her name today. It is not because of a clothing line, a staged photo, or a corporate check, but because she looked at the traditional definition of business success and decided it did not define her. She exited that room holding her head high. Some observers might call that naive, while others see it as incredibly brave. But every now and then, when an individual chooses their true identity over material gain, the world stops to pay attention. And right now, everyone is listening to Eala.